Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm here with Ken Hamilton, and we're at a haunted house in South Paris. It is the Ripley House, and Ken worked here and had offices here when the H.O.P.E headquarters were here in South Paris. And we wanted to interview Ken about his experience here at the Ripley House, and we're hoping to get inside to do a paranormal investigation of our own for Frontiers of the Mind. So, Ken, I know that you are a doctor, you're a retired surgeon, and you've been retired for a number of years, and you opened an organization here at the Ripley House in South Paris. And can you tell me about a little bit of the name of the organization and how the setup was inside the house?
Surely. Thank you very much, Ada. It's a fascinating story. The organization I started was in my surgical practice for people who've had cancer to support them in their lives, and this is the way it all works for me, is helping people live. And we called it H.O.P.E, and the letters stand for Healing of Persons Exceptional. And you and I are persons, and we're an exception in relationship to each other, so we're exceptional, and to heal is to become whole. And I found that helping my patients to heal was a sidetrack to my surgical profession that really, really impacted the quality of what I was able to give this wonderful community. I came here in 1971, I started H.O.P.E in 1987, and in 1990 we moved into this building, the Ripley building.
And can you tell me a little bit about the history of the Ripley building?
The Ripley building was built by Pearlie Ripley of Ripley and Fletcher in 1909 when he founded his business. And 1 year later this house was built, completed, and he and his wife Mary moved in here. And this is where he carried on a very successful business. As you look at it, you can see how successful it was.
What kind of business was it?
Ford dealership.
Okay.
And fuel oil.
And fuel oil. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And Mary was chronically depressed, but the thing that she got a great deal out of was gardening. And this place, we have a picture of it that just shows Mary in her gardens here. And they were far more complex than what we're experiencing. But we live in this great circle of trees here. And what I found out when we were given the use of this place by the Ripley estate, H.O.P.E was given this place as a holistic health center. So we had acupuncturists here, we had counselors here, we had massage therapists here, we had me here.
And we also had Reiki people here, as I understand it. Susan Kane did Reiki here and taught Reiki attunements here as well. That's how actually I got interested in the place.
Yeah.
So there were lots of different practitioners, holistic practitioners from the area who had their businesses here in the building.
Yes. And right from the get-go, we experienced presences in that building.
Mm-hmm.
We were aware of them right from the get-go. And they came and they went and they changed.
And what year was it again?
That was 1990.
1990, you moved in and you immediately sensed presences in the building.
Yes. There were 3 that were identified right off the bat.
Yes.
And there were 2 of them were morose adults, and 1 of them was a small child at the foot of the basement stairs, which is basically impossible for the Ripley history, because they had no children.
Yes.
Which is so interesting.
So what you have is you have spirits that don't seem to be or connected to the place that they're being found in, which as a paranormal investigator immediately says to me, perhaps there is a vortex around here, that because we have so many beings coming in and they're not connected in some way historically that we can tell to the property.
Well, there's not only a vortex here, but there's a ley line that runs from the widest maple over there on the edge of the property to that central bush there.
There, yes.
And it goes all along there, and the vortex is right over here.
I'm going to ask, would you mind putting the camera on where the vortex is?
Yeah. You swing your camera around, and when you're looking at the center of this circle of trees, this is a beautiful circle of trees. Right in the center, I found this vortex, and the grass, there was no grass growing in it, and the ground was depressed.
Yes.
And
And it
When-
looks very different now than how it looked like when you guys found the vortex.
And it didn't change until after we built the Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And we centered the Labyrinth, which is an 11th Circuit Labyrinth,
Mm-hmm.
right there in the vortex. So the white rose of Mary was laid on that depressed, grassless area.
Right.
And you look at it, and it ain't depressed, and it ain't grassless.
No, it's actually very full and very bushy
Yeah.
looking. And it's been a number of years since you built this labyrinth on summer solstice,
Yes.
which is, as I understand it, is based on the labyrinth at H.O.P.E. Am I saying that?
Chartres.
My French is not all that good.
Chartres.
Chartres
Good.
Cathedral
Yes.
in Paris.
No, it's in Chartres, France.
Well, the
There.
Chartres Cathedral is in
Okay.
Chartres, France.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you built this labyrinth around the vortex.
Yes.
All right. And after you built, do I understand correctly that you brought different groups, paranormal investigation groups, in to check the property out? Did they come in to clear it? What was that?
Well, yeah, when we became aware of presences here, we got people from the community, and we've got a lot of people in this community who know about paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And some of our friends who were very willing came and got a good read on what was present in the house at that time.
Right.
And we worked to clear that presence.
Yes.
Okay. And it seemed that they settled down and moved away, but there was one presence that stayed and stayed and stayed, and it really was just one of those. It's just a nuisance.
Yes.
You know. And what it would do, it would open faucets full bore. It would open doors and shut doors and make sounds of moving furniture around.
Sounds like a
everything.
poltergeist to me.
And that's exactly what it was.
Yes. I would really appreciate it if you could tell me about some of the experiences you yourself had in there, inside of the Ripley House, and then some of the experiences that other people who also shared offices on the site of the Ripley House. Would you tell me some of the things that happened to you first? Did you?
You know what?
Yes.
Occasionally, I would hear the poltergeist
And what did you hear?
rattling.
Rattling?
Yeah.
Did it sound like windows rattling or doors rattling,
Just doors.
or like doors rattling?
Doors. And this was the way it was with my secretary, Rhonda. Doors would open and close.
Mm-hmm. In your office or in other parts of the house, the building that you weren't
it was
actually
outside of my office, and it was in the second floor.
in the second floor, but
Hallway.
outside of your office,
Also,
in
the
the
room I
hallway.
used, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And what did other people experience?
Well, Abby, the massage therapist, had a lot of experiences with the poltergeist phenomenon.
And we may
Hearing
try. We
rattling.
may try to get a hold of Abby and do some video with her as well. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, and I have her permission to give you her name and her
Okay.
email address. She'd be happy to be interviewed.
So Abby, the massage therapist,
Yes.
experienced.
And she, again, it was all poltergeist stuff. And the most striking thing was she was alone with a client one time, and they heard this moving around, this thumping, and both the doors of this place were locked. And they were sure there was another person here because it was just thumping footprints, footsteps, and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
And all of a sudden there was this tremendous crash, as if something had swept a whole pile of books off of a bookcase, and they heard them crashing on the floor. And Ab went into the room, and there was nothing on that bookcase, and there was nothing on the floor.
Right.
So it was an auditory phenomenon completely, but
Right.
it had both her and her client completely, wide-eyed about what was going on.
And wondering what was happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the same thing is true as John Davis, who was doing Reiki and counseling. He would hear presence in the adjacent bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
but just specifically there. Fascinating thing about it is that these people weren't afraid of what they were hearing, and they had no qualms about describing it.
Well,
which is
they're
very good.
professionals and they work with energy. And if you're a professional and you work with energy, one would think you would have an open mind, or one would hope you would have an open
One
mind.
would think,
Speaking of
exactly.
H.O.P.E. House.
And they do. And the thing about the energy of this is this house actually called Hope and me. It was beautiful the way it did it.
Mm-hmm.
And we came here and started this holistic health center in the town when this kind of thing was anathema to a lot of the town, and we thrived for a decade anyway.
Right.
And then the energy began to leave the place, which was so fascinating.
When you say the energy began to leave the place, you mean the poltergeist type phenomenon?
No, there was an attractive energy here,
Uh-huh.
and it's what attracted Hope.
A sort of spiritual energy.
Oh, very much a spiritual energy.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
And at the end of that 10 years,
10
it
years.
seemed to dissipate?
Dissipated.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah. And so these...
How long after you built the labyrinth around the vortex before that began to dissipate?
Not too very long. Maybe
Okay.
a couple of years.
Well, that would, one of the questions I would have then is, was that a positive vortex, a positive energy vortex, and by putting the labyrinth around it, did you sidetrack the energy that might have been coming out or feeding the positive energy on the property here?
It's a good thought. I
I
think
would
the
wanna
energy
check it
track on that ley line over there is more
Mhm.
to do with that than anything else. Because
Mhm.
I don't feel that over there anymore.
You don't feel that positive energy over there. We should get Hank Moshe, who's one of our team members, who's a great dowser, and to check that out, to see if the real estate agency allows us to do that. The reason that I was so interested in doing this property is that I had given my son a Reiki 1 attunement as a birthday gift a number of years ago, and we drove here for the Reiki attunement with Susan Kane. And while we were here for the attunement, we arrived late and people were waiting to start the class for us. I had gone into the house, in through the kitchen to the bathroom, and I put my son's lunch in the refrigerator so they could get started on the class. And as I walked through the kitchen, I could see a spirit standing at the sink. It was a woman, and she had on one of those aprons that has like the little cubby hole. I call them cubby holes. They're little sections around the bottom of the apron, and she was stirring away and cooking a pea soup mixture on the top of the stove. I could feel pea soup, I could smell pea soup, and I could see this woman with my third eye, not with my physical eyes. But I walked past her, stopped and looked back again, and felt her energy there. And because the class was supposed to start, I felt like I'm not following up on this. But that's why I wanted to see if we could get into this house and check out what's happening. Now, you just told me recently that other people have come in to clear out the energy, leftover energy pieces, and that someone recently, and we don't have to use names, came in to look at the property and felt a presence there and decided not to buy it.
That's correct.
So it sounds like it still could stand to be cleared. Otherwise, people would not be feeling that.
Obviously.
Yes.
But then again, where she sensed that energy, which is in the upstairs sewing room, nobody's ever felt energy there before.
So here you have it, poltergeists in South Paris and other sorts of interesting spirits in the Ripley home, which was once known as the H.O.P.E house. And how do we get rid of that? Well, we do a paranormal investigation if possible. There also can be a remote clearing. Some of us in our Frontiers of the Mind teams know how to do remote clearing, so we'll be considering that as well. And perhaps we'll get back to you with another video on a paranormal investigation here at Ripley House in South Paris, Maine. Well, thank you, Ken Hamilton, for
You're
allowing
welcome,
us to
Adita
interview
Phil.
you. And thanks for sharing with us all that you know about the Ripley House, the former H.O.P.E house, and looking forward to finding out what's going on in there and clearing it so that it can be sold.
Yeah.